Hey everyone, thank you for joining this guide video where I attempt to give a brief rundown on the nation dungeon Avalon, which for the uninitiated is the place where Arthur's iconic sword Excalibur was forged. As for the dungeon itself, you're only allowed to bring 4 mercenaries along with your main, some of which should carry anti-air capabilities, as you will be facing flying enemies in the early stage. You'll be tasked with completing 3 floors, the first of which being undeniably the easiest. Monsters here have for the most part scaling levels that will match that of your main, so at the very least you should be able to help your nation with clearing common enemies. As you might also imagine, this will impact monster drops, since those will scale as well. So, a few things you should know about this place. The first floor has 3 enemy gates that will need to be swiftly demolished, since otherwise they will be spawning more and more monsters, which not only ends up taking more time, but threatens your allied gate as well. In most instances, the allied gate in the first floor tends to be easy to defend. I would advise that you remain vigilant though, and pay attention in case your dedicated gate guardian asks for assistance, in which case you should prioritize helping out. I've gone ahead and decided to display a basic map pinpointing the location of all the gates in this floor. I will take this opportunity to mention that, while the gates themselves aren't particularly powerful, it is best to leave their destruction to your strongest nation mates, as speed in this case is highly encouraged. If you still decide on tagging one, then keep in mind that they are immune to ranged attacks, so change your formation accordingly. You'll undoubtedly have noticed by now that there are a few mobs with red names throughout this clip. Those are mini-bosses with a set level of 175. While they don't require any specific strategy to defeat, I'll go ahead and recommend simply avoiding them if you are below level 160. Otherwise, you can freely engage them and brute force your way through that fight. This makes this floor pretty straightforward overall, regardless of which role you take in it. Gate clearers will want to prioritize engaging enemy gates, defenders will generally hang out near the allied gate to intercept any stragglers or provide healing and support to the gate as needed, while the majority of your forces will be dedicated to eradicating the swarm of monsters and mini-bosses scattered throughout the map. If this is your first time participating in Avalon, your safest option, in my opinion, is to pick off the regular mobs. Engage them as you move along the path, but try to stay clear of the mini-bosses, as they will join any ongoing battle close to them, which could spell trouble if your formation isn't strong enough. Keep an eye out for calls for help from your defenders, but please avoid joining any ongoing battle against your allied gate if you did not field any healing mercenaries, as all you will accomplish in that case is occupy a spot in the battle and thus block your healing allies from reinforcing your side to provide heals to the gate. As a final advice, if you find yourself in trouble during a battle, do not hesitate to ask for assistance from your nation mates. They have everything to gain from helping you out, since that will speed things up. Ta-da! A couple dozens minutes later, you should hopefully receive the success pop-up that indicates that the way towards the second floor is now unlocked. Don't go in just yet, please. I will go ahead and mention that, if you do not have a formation dedicated to sniping, simply sit still and wait for your allies to clear this floor. No matter how good intentioned you are, challenging this floor with an improper setup puts the whole undertaking at risk of failure. Now, before we go into further detail on that, I will briefly show a map of this floor along with the location of the allied gates, which resides within the central plateau, and the opposing gates, which as you can see are spread out all over the corners of the map. So, the second floor. Every group of monsters in this area is composed of a leader and a group of manipulated regulars. The issue is that you are strongly discouraged from killing any of the manipulated creatures, as lore-wise, they are brainwashed by the puppeteers that lead them. Those puppeteers are your target, which should explain the need for sniping setup. A sniping setup does not imply bringing two archers with you and assume that you're the savior of fairies. As you'll see throughout this clip, having AP boosting capabilities and other damage buffs can drastically quicken the process. Every task in this dungeon that requires specialization implies that you need to be fast in its execution. Simply being able to defeat a mob does not justify actually doing it. This applies if we make one vital assumption though, that your nation has enough members that can take care of that duty. Otherwise, meaning in the case where your nation lacks, for whatever reason, enough capable members, you may then go ahead and help, but be smart about your decisions. As you surely know by now, this floor too has gates that need to collapse. If you wish to undertake this task, I'd suggest informing your nation beforehand in order to organize your gate assignments with the rest of the gate squad. One thing to remember, gates are immune to ranged attacks, even in this floor, so you will need to be flexible with your formation, as you'll need snipers to deal with monsters and melee attacks to deal with the gates. A word of warning before we continue. Please do not forget to take off your mounts, decorations, home statues, and whatever other entity that can trigger an AoE damaging spell and risk killing some of the manipulated creatures. While this won't outright fail your run, it will put your allied gates in serious danger. That serious danger being a horde of puppeteers of darkness will spawn around the center plateau and will beeline for your gate. If you fail to defend it in time, that will end your turn in a failure, I'm afraid. So if you see the prompt, rush towards your allied gate and intercept the bosses if you can. Do know that their level is set at 180 and must be sniped too. And there you have it. If you can keep your wits about you and follow proper discipline, you should be able to succeed in this floor as well. Do not worry if you cannot participate though. All members within the dungeon will obtain reward boxes, even if you couldn't help in clearing this floor. The final boss floor. It seems the mastermind behind Avalon's ordeal is the Knight of the Round Table, Lancelot. There are two main components to this floor, the boss battle and his supporting statues. We'll begin by describing the statues and the mind-numbingly boring process of dealing with them. For consistency's sake, I've decided to incorporate a map here as well that only highlights the location of the boss, which stands tall on top of the central landmass. The statues will be frequently spawning across the side path, so either pick a spot for yourself and wait, or circle around to engage statues as they spawn. This is a competition, by the way. Rewards increase based on your ranking. Being able to end a statue battle in a single turn will prove very beneficial. But even if you cannot, you won't have to worry about retaliation, as the statues are simply incapable of attacking. making those fights strictly one-sided and safe. The question that somewhat asks itself then is, what is the purpose of this seemingly pointless endeavor? Well, these statues in fact provide various effects and buffs to the boss battle, depending on the kind of statue that was summoned. You do not have any control over this. The spawns are completely scripted and happen as Lancelot's HP depletes. That's pretty much it. Your duty will be to assault statues as they spawn and defeat them as fast as possible in order to facilitate the boss battle for your boss slaying team. Now, for those of you who wish to participate in the boss battle, that will be the part that I cover next. The fight with Lancelot requires some preparation. Scrolls. Utility scrolls will be vital for this battle. Purification, Awakening, Resurrection, Scroll of Cure, Scroll of Empowerment, and possibly even a large batch of miracle potions for good measure. This is the kind of battle where you truly risk a forced respawn, so do come prepared. I will add that dying in this fight only penalizes you personally and doesn't impact the nation dungeon itself. So if you're simply curious to see how you will fare against him, then by all means, go ahead. Oh, and one more thing. You are alone in this battle. Nobody can join your battle, you cannot join anyone's battle. Each time someone engages Lancelot, it simply creates a new instance. Alright then. As soon as the battle begins, two groups of monsters will reinforce Lancelot and will start their turn by censoring the speech, or rather silencing your entire formation. This would prove deadly, if not for the purification scrolls that you surely brought with you. I'd suggest focusing on dispatching the two groups first, before turning your attention on Lancelot himself. Lancelot doesn't require any elaborate strategies. This is mostly a battle of attrition, things considered. Lancelot's sword attack behaves similarly to an axe's, meaning it will strike 3 adjacent targets in a column. It's a column. I don't care about where your camera is, it's a column. One thing I should add is that he has a passive skill that can instantly stun the primary target of his attack, so keep your awakening scrolls at the ready. That is all there is to know about this fight really. All you need to do is out-tank his damage, keep a consistent damage output, and pray that your allies are doing their part. A little while later, Lancelot is defeated and you can all pat yourselves on the back. Wait a minute. Oh come on, really? This was so obvious I can't even find the motivation to fake outrage. Yes, that was indeed too easy. Lancelot is not the final form, far from it. The true boss battle is against Merlin, with his comically large 660 million HP. You are here for a while, so make yourself comfortable. Is what I would like to tell you, but you can't really hope for comfort in this fight. Being strong is insufficient. There are certain formations that you must rigorously follow if you wish to stand a chance in this battle. Otherwise, you will find yourself dying repeatedly, in which case I'd highly recommend focusing on slaying statues instead. If you wish to study about formations that can effectively take out Merlin, you'll have to search elsewhere, I'm afraid. As to avoid bloating this video too much, I have decided to include only a single formation as example. This battle could be its own guide video, with all sorts of possible formations detailed and explained, which I may or may not do in the future, but is not a priority for me at the moment. Okay, back on topic. Your scrolls should hopefully still be at hand, as you will be needing them in this phase as well. Once you engage the fight, two groups will reinforce Merlin in the same fashion. They will silence your entire formation as well, so swiftly decimating them is a priority. Merlin himself is incomparably stronger than Lancelot, even if we disregard the HP gap. He has two main skills to speak of: a passive skill that grants his basic attack the ability to damage the entire formation while simultaneously reducing crippling amounts of AP. The second one is an active AoE damaging spell that leaves your party afflicted with a damage over time curse and various debuffs. If you thought you could brute force your way through this battle, I will spare you the pain and advise you against it. The formation suggested in this video works only if you are a staff main, which annoyingly enough, everyone and their mother is these days, but that's irrelevant. The critical pieces required are a Valkyrie with her signature skill Quickening for a much needed boost in AP, and the United Brothers Grimm with their transforming ability Red Riding Hood, which sort of completely invalidates the challenge of this fight. Depending on your experience with the game, you may or may not understand why this requires being a staff main. The answer is primarily access to the spell Quantum Leap, whose effect is as amazing as its name, as it decreases the cooldown for all skills in a column by up to 4 turns. This guarantees that your Grimm can consistently incapacitate Merlin at the end of every one of your turns, while your Valkyrie keeps all of your formation fed on AP. As you can see, adopting a plus-shaped formation with Grimm standing by your main side is compulsory for this to work. You have a bit more flexibility when it comes to the remaining 2 mercenaries. I recommend including at least one major damage dealer though, as you are competing for better rewards here as well. In my nation, Paradise, we tend to coordinate our damage so that most of the boss team receives the optimal amount of boxes, but your millage may vary in this case. If you manage to follow these guidelines, you may very well be on your way to defeating Merlin along with your nation mates. Make sure to stay focused, as this battle can definitely drag on for a while, and any lapse in concentration could cause fatal mistakes. No stress though, you simply need to teleport back to the dungeon and resume where you were in case you die. Victory! If you've managed up to this point, then I congratulate you on your successful Avalon run. This is the first video I have ever made, and as shoddy as it may be, I am proud to have actually made it, and truly grateful that you've watched it up to this point. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you in my future videos. Goodbye.